Oh boy. Oh boy. I know this will be controversial. I know many people will disagree with me completely on this. I feel like I'm on an island alone. I feel like it's me by myself shouting at the top of my lungs that this movie actually sucks. And I'm talking about Hereditary. This is a movie that is beyond praised for so many things and for so many reasons. I see that it currently has over an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. So still it's looked upon as quote a great horror movie. I know that A24 is known for making movies that are different. A24 has a history of making films that I personally don't really enjoy. So maybe it's just one of those deals where their tone, their style, and the type of horror movies that they like to make just for whatever reason doesn't vibe with me. It's like a continuous thing that I have noticed, a pattern, you could say. But also this particular director. This movie is written and directed by Ari Aster. And he too has a history of writing and directing movies that I don't particularly care for. And it's not for what you might think the obvious reasons are. It's not for the usual, like, oh, I thought the movie was boring, or oh, not enough happened throughout the film. No, quite the contrary. I actually enjoy like a good hour and a half, hour 45, at least a majority of this movie. As far as the writing of the characters, some of the dialogue, as far as the acting, and as far as the directing. Like, Ari Aster, I do think, has a certain style to his horror movies that I do appreciate, right? I'm not sitting here and saying that he's a terrible director or he's a terrible writer or that he doesn't know what he's doing because obviously other people enjoy it. It's not so much that. It's just there are choices in this movie that I don't understand. And there are things about this movie that for me ruin the film. That for me overdo anything good that's in it. I think the bad outweighs the good. I think the bad is just glaring for me personally. I also have to give this movie credit. It had a $10 million budget with an over $80 million box office return. I mean, that's wild. Just nothing but praise when it comes to what low budget horror movies are able to bring back. But the first thing that I want to praise, I know this is an unholy rant, but I want to give credit where credit is due, and I don't want to misconstrue the complaints that I do have about this movie. I want to first mention Toni Collette is amazing. She's amazing. She's the best part of this movie. She plays the character Annie. At the time when this movie first came out, a lot of people said that Toni Collette deserved an Oscar nomination. And I agree. Even though I don't like the movie and even though I hate parts of the movie, I don't have any complaints of her and her performance, her and her acting. If she had been nominated for an Oscar, I would have been like, hell yeah, give it to her. She deserves it. Absolutely. You won't get an argument here. She has so many scenes where she's dealing with stuff of her past, dealing with stuff with her mom, dealing with things that she doesn't 100% know what's going on and she's confused by, and also the trauma that she's dealing with certain aspects of her family and her children and things that she just can't control. The daughter, 13-year-old daughter, Charlie, I remember first seeing this actress and thinking, okay, all right, she's probably the one that this movie's going to be centered on. She's probably maybe even the main character that things will be happening with, whether it's haunting or whether it's this demon, ghost, whatever, targeting her. But no, very early on, she shockingly gets killed. Or at least it's an accident, right? She's outside of the car window and her head gets taken off. And it's startling. It's something I did not expect. And it was ballsy because, once again, I would have said that's the last thing that I expected. And it perked me up in my chair watching and saying, man, what's going to happen next? Anything can happen. But then after that, that's where we spend more time with Peter, who is her brother, played by Alex Wolff. This character is 16 years old. Even though Alex Wolff is like 25 years old. And look, I know that this happens countless times in Hollywood. It's been happening since the 80s in Hollywood, where 20-something-year-olds are playing 16-year-olds. But for whatever reason, I just could not buy Alex Wolff at playing 16. He just did not look like a teenager. He looked like he had a 5 o'clock shadow in every scene that he was in. But it didn't help that his character was always whining, always crying, and just super fucking annoying. I know that he too has gone through some stuff, right? He loses his sister, lost his grandmother. There's some freaky stuff going on with his mom and his coven, and he doesn't quite understand stuff. And also, you get to a point where there's a demon almost being summoned to go into his body. Like, there's some freaky stuff going on here, but he's acting like a bitch in scenes that don't have anything to do with the hauntings, don't have anything to do with the possession or the ghosts. Like, he's just acting like a whiny little shit. And compared to his sister, who was more quiet and more mysterious, more shy, and it made me more curious about her and what her deal was, he was quite the opposite. He was not interesting, and so us spending more time with him as opposed to the sister just felt like an odd choice. I didn't care for that. Now, you get towards the end of this movie, because like I said, the biggest issue throughout the movie is Peter, but for the most part, everything else is working. It is haunting. It is creepy. There are scenes that do work as far as trying to figure out what exactly is going on with the family. Why are they being targeted? Why are all these bad things happening to them? Toni Collette's acting. There's a lot that is still working until you get to the third act. There is a scene where Toni Collette finds out about her family connection to this book and this coven and what exactly will be the fate of the family. And she's telling her husband this. Her husband, who is a psychiatrist, and so obviously he doesn't really believe her. He thinks she's crazy. She tells him to burn the book because she can't do it. And he says, no, I won't do it. So she takes the book and she throws it into the fire pit. And in doing so, the husband gets set on fire. Now, I could complain about why the fuck did this happen. I could complain about how the fuck did this happen. I mean, look, when you're dealing with witch stuff, coven stuff, when you're dealing with supernatural stuff, it's hard to explain it. You could easily, I guess, just say that there was a protection spell on the book, and so it burned somebody else that indirectly won't affect the book. I don't know, whatever. That's not even my biggest complaint. As his body is burning, and it's a really good practical effect, Toni Collette at first is horrified, and then she goes blank. And she's not reactionary anymore because she seemingly gets possessed. Now, when Peter comes home after a weird episode in class where he's bashing his own head into the desk, which I thought was kind of hilarious, he gets attacked by his mother. She's now possessed, chasing him. It almost becomes a Shining situation, which I can get behind. Cool, right? And she's chasing him around, and he's freaking out, and he's hiding from her. And while this is going on, you're seeing a bunch of naked people outside of the home, and I don't know why they're naked. I know they're a coven. Maybe this is some spiritual thing. Maybe it's like, well, this is the night where everything goes down, so our ritual is that we're buck-ass naked. But I didn't want to see it. There's a lot of overweight, ugly people in this coven, and so I just don't want to see them naked. It wouldn't even help if they were all attractive and hot people naked, because even that would just be too weird as far as me trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. But as Peter sees this, he then sees his mother, Annie. She's floating in the air, and she starts to cut her own head off with this piano wire, and she decapitates herself. And I know that that's supposed to be a horrifying image, a haunting image, right? That he sees his mother do this. And also, she cuts her head off in the same way that Charlie accidentally got her head cut off. But we spent so much time with Annie, right? We spent so much time with Toni Collette, 2+ hours of really following her more so than even Peter as the main character, of trying to get to the bottom of this, of dealing with the emotion that all of this shit has brought her family, even well before the kids were here, even with her when she was younger. Like, there was so much that Annie deals with. And so for that to be her fate just seems so anticlimactic, just seems so unnecessary. Even if you wanted to kill her off, which I probably wouldn't have done, I don't think you have to kill off your main characters to have a impactful horror movie ending that is supposed to leave something with you. You can just have your characters go through a bunch of shit, but because they've gone through all of that shit, they kind of deserve to live at the end. But even if you wanted to kill her, why is this the way that you kill her? Why doesn't she snap out of being possessed, fight it, right? Be a fighter, try to save her son, maybe fight the possession because she's trying to beat this, and then maybe she gets killed by one of the Coven members. Again, I wouldn't have done that, but it's just her doing that to herself. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't like it. Peter sees this, and Peter also sees a bunch of naked people coming into the fucking house with him. And believe me, I kind of understand why. If I was him, I probably would be like, no, I don't want to get butt raped by these people. No, I'm gonna jump out the window and kill myself. So I get why he does this. So he does. He jumps out the window of the attic, dies. But you can also argue that that was super lame as well. Like, so we spent all this time with Peter, and as annoying as he is, he doesn't grow a pair of balls. He doesn't get a backbone. He doesn't become a fighter. He doesn't defend himself. He doesn't try to save his mom. No, he goes out like the bitch that he is. So I guess he's staying in character. It's consistent. But he kills himself. And then this glowing orb comes out of nowhere. I mean, I guess it's the demon, or I guess it's just supposed to represent whatever. It enters his body, and he wakes up, but he's not Peter anymore. He acts like Charlie. Charlie had these mannerisms and had these little weird twitches to her that made you know that that was her. So Peter now starts doing this, or his body starts to do this. So I guess Charlie is now possessing him, maybe? And as he goes back into the attic, you see the body of the headless mom, headless Toni Collette, is floating along with them. And it's just like, wow. I remember being in the theater and seeing this and just going, this is stupid. This is stupid. This sucks. This is lame as all hell. In the attic, all of the Coven members are worshiping this mannequin that has this crown on it. And the lady of the Coven, she's going off about how the demon was in Charlie's body, I guess. And so maybe it wasn't really Charlie that had those mannerisms. Maybe it was the demon that had the mannerisms. And that's why Peter now has those mannerisms. That's why Peter's acting weird, because it was really the demon. And the demon didn't like being in Charlie's body, a female body. He wanted to be in a male body, so that's why they killed the daughter, so that he could take the son's body instead. I mean, we went through a lot of other shit. We went all the way around the world in order to get to this place, but okay, fine. So now they place the crown onto Peter's head, and they say, hey, Peter, you're now the demon, you're now the fucking king, and you now rule this Coven. Yay. And then the movie fucking ends. Like, what are we supposed to gain from this? What are we supposed to get from it? That this family had no chance? That we watched them for 2+ hours and it was just inevitable that they were all going to die, that they were all going to lose, and that there's just nothing good out there in the world? I'm not saying every movie has to have a happy ending, and I'm not saying that every movie has to have the ending that I would prefer. I'm still trying to figure out what this is. I'm still trying to figure out why this happened. I'm still trying to figure out, how is this satisfying to anybody? And why am I the only one that had major problems with this? Look, I get praising the acting. I get even praising the directing as far as cinematography, as far as lighting, as far as images and the tone, the creepiness, the setting up of certain scares. I get all of that, but how do you commend the ending of this? How do you commend the third act? How do you commend seeing these characters have this kind of a lame fate that's not satisfying at all? That's undeserving of such great acting from some of these people. I don't get how it's ignored. I feel like it's one of those situations where you can say that this guy is a genius, you could say that this guy is amazing at horror, but for me, endings are a big deal. Endings are the lasting image that you get from a film. I feel like I'm the only person that sits there and thinks about this and says, man, this kind of ruins the movie and ruins my experience and doesn't make me really want to go back and rewatch this because I know that I'm just going to be disappointed by the end of it. So, guys, let me know. Let's talk about this. And we don't have to yell at each other. We don't have to call each other morons. If you like this movie still, if you even like the ending, we don't have to argue. Just explain to me. Explain to me why. Explain to me why this works or why this makes sense. Or if you agree with me, then hell yeah, let's talk about that as well. Let's talk about why this movie absolutely sucks. In our opinion, of course. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.